guys, welcome back to Truth Trackers. We have something a little different for you tonight. Instead of being at the church where you're used to seeing me, I thought I'd let you all come to my house. So what do you think? Or in the dining room? This is kind of weird for all of us, right? It's okay. Our friend Alex had to work tonight, so I've got some amateur camera people. So if things mess up, we can blame them. Okay, just kidding. Okay, so I just wanted you to know, first of all, I've been feeling a little lonely without talking to you guys every day or seeing you every week. So if you get a chance, or you guys can have your parents do it, whatever, make sure you comment and let us know that you're watching so we know that people are actually watching this, okay? Because we don't really know unless you guys comment. So make sure you let us know. Okay, so this is what, week 23 of our Truth Trackers? Okay, this week we're learning about how we need to turn to God and not the world during our trials. The last few weeks we've learned that everybody has troubles. Your mom and dad have trials that they go through. Your brothers and sisters have trials they go through. I have a dog running up and down the stairs while I'm trying to do this. Everybody has struggles and trials, and that's part of living in this world, okay? That's part of what we all face, and that's okay. That's part of living here on earth. And if you're a child of God, a saved Christian, you have an advantage over other people. We have a God that will hear us when we pray. We are always looking, every human is looking for a way out. As soon as you find a struggle or a trial, you're automatically looking for a way to solve the problem and to get through it and to get it over with, right? Nobody wants to be in trouble. Nobody wants to be in a struggle or a trial, but we all face those times. Many people will try lots of different things looking for a way to stop the trial. Do you remember last week we learned that God can use his earthly trials for his glory to teach us lessons? That's a very important thing to remember. So when you find yourself in a situation where there's some sort of conflict and you don't enjoy the situation you're in, stop and remember that God is using it to teach you something. And you might need to look for the lesson and to pray and ask God, what is it I'm supposed to be learning from this? And how should I respond? What do you want me to do? Some people will run to their friends and other people, or even trust the world's wisdom, but we need to trust God, okay? We should run to him during our times of trouble. So I have a quick illustration to share with you guys, and I think this one's really cool. Maybe you'll see why in just a second, okay? But first of all, we need to, everybody put on your pretender caps. Ready? Okay, these are gonna be what helps our imaginations go a little bit crazy and a little bit wild. And this is going to be a lot of fun, okay? Because there's a weird situation I'm going to put you in, okay? I need you all to first pretend you're on a yacht, okay? I put up a picture of a yacht for you. I know a lot of you probably don't know what a yacht is. I've never seen one in person. But a yacht is a super fancy, really extravagant, humongous ship, okay? It's like a big giant boat. A lot of wealthy people, celebrities or athletes or whatever, they'll have a yacht that they'll throw big extravagant parties on. They'll eat, caviar, whatever fancy food you can think of. They have fancy schmancy parties on these big giant yachts. And sometimes people even live on a yacht, okay? It's huge, big, fancy boat, okay? So everybody pretend you're on a big yacht and we're in the middle of the ocean, okay? So I want you to look as far as you can to the north. Whoa, I can't see land, okay? Everybody look as far as you can to the south. Whoa, there's no land that way either, okay? We're gonna look behind us. Guess what? No land back there either. And if you look ahead, you can kind of make something out in the distance, but you're not sure if it's an island or maybe a whale or another ship. There's something way out there that's fuzzy, but we don't know. It's so far away, we can't tell what it is, okay? So basically, we are in the middle of nowhere. All right, we're in the middle of the water. We can't find anything. We're floating along with our friends, eating our fancy schmancy food. And guess what? The sky starts to get dark and the wind starts to pick up and it starts to get creepy and eerie and it starts to get colder. The wind shifts a different direction. The clouds start getting dark. It's about to storm. All right, so people are starting to get nervous now. We're in the middle of the water. Nothing to be found to help us, right? Then we hear thunder, boom, and we see lightning flash. And all of a sudden, a thunderstorm unleashes, and we are in trouble. The waves are crashing from side to side, and we're thrashing around on the boat, and we can't hold on. Suddenly, the yacht capsizes and turns upside down, and we are in the water, floating with just our friends and whatever things landed off the boat, right? And now we're just floating in the middle of the ocean with nothing around us. We're alone, and I'm scared. Are you scared? I would be scared, wouldn't you? Okay. Then, suddenly, this cool thing flies overhead. First of all, we can all acknowledge that helicopters are super cool, right? Does anybody know anybody that flies a helicopter? I do, and he's the coolest person I know. Okay, helicopters are really awesome. And if you were floating in the water with your friends and tired, and a helicopter flew over, what would you feel? Would you see excitement, relief, even peace? Now, what if you saw it and you saw this part, okay? Now there's a guy coming down on a rope, and he's yelling for you, and he's saying, grab hold of the lifeline. Wouldn't you feel excited and relieved and peace then? Or would you shout back, no thanks, my buddy and I can do this, we got it. We're just gonna try to swim over there to that shore maybe. We don't need you, thanks. Wouldn't that be ridiculous? We would never put our trust in the people who are drowning along with us. And we wouldn't even trust ourselves to get us out of a mess like that, would we? We would never put our own power in ourselves in a life-threatening situation. Trusting ourselves or even our friends at that point would be totally absurd. Psalm 20, verse 7 says, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the Lord our God. Turning to people around us or the world and its philosophies is pointless. Remember our previous lesson, we talked about how God allows our struggles because he has a lesson to teach us. He has promised to deliver us from our trials, and he alone can do that. Knowing that God will be with us can bring peace, much like knowing that we're about to be plucked out of the middle of the ocean by some really cool helicopter guys. In times of trouble, we must turn to God, not the world. That was a big intro, huh, guys? Okay, so here's what we're going to do now. By special request, we had a couple of people request a certain song. So we now have And the Ducks Go By. Enjoy this, guys.
Well, the ducks go by, quack, 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 quack. Things go up, things go down, and the world goes round and around and around. And God lives on. He made the birds, he made the bees, he made the flowers and all the trees. Can't you see? He died for you and me. And the ducks go by, quack, 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 quack. Things go up, things go down, and the world goes round and around and around. And God lives on. 1, 2, 3, 4. He wants to open every door for you, if you ask him to. And the ducks go by, quack, 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 quack. Things go up, things go down, and the world goes round and around and around. And God lives on. He died for you, he died for me. He died to set his people free from sin. Oh, won't you ask him in? And the ducks go by, quack, 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 quack. Things go up, things go down, and the world goes round and around and around. And God lives on.
Okay, I hope you guys all enjoyed that song. It's one of my personal favorites. I'm glad somebody requested it. Anybody else has a request, put it in the comments. We'll do our best to accommodate those, okay? That was really fun. All right, so this week we have a story. I got really high tech. I have pictures to go with the story, so hopefully we'll get those all worked in for you, okay? This is a fictional story. I'll tell you that, and I'll explain what that means at the end. But right now, let's dive in for story time. Make sure you're listening well. Okay, so 3 crude man-made canoes glided slowly down the river, carefully watching passengers. Mike Scott, a missionary in the deepest regions of the Amazon rainforest, was taking a small team led by a native scout to an upstream village. Mike's ministry had begun to bear fruit in the past few years as several natives trusted Christ as their savior. But no sooner had the natives begun to trust Christ than Satan's oppositions began. There had been several fights among neighboring villages, and many of the men had died. Along with the deaths had come the outbreak of malaria. The believing natives had looked to God for strength during this time of trial, but many of the villagers blamed Mike and his God for the war and disease. In the village to which Mike was traveling, the sickness had stricken especially hard. Even though they were suspicious of Mike, they begged him to come and give the medications that they so badly needed. Between Mike's base of operations and the village to which they were traveling lay the territory of a native tribe known for its fierceness. They allowed no visitors and often attacked without warning. Mike's native scouts had insisted that the group travel armed with guns and spears, but Mike had been firm in insisting that the group go unarmed. "You take the gun," they pleaded after Mike had told them to leave their spears. "Then they will have fear and they won't attack us." "No," Mike replied firmly. "Any sign of threat could lead to an attack. Besides, my trust does not lie in weapons. Don't you remember what I taught you last week during our Bible study? We must not put our hope and trust in chariots or horses, but in the name of God." "We don't want to take horses and chariots, just your gun," the native leader responded. Mike had learned that these guys had a good sense of humor. "We will go in the name of the Lord," was Mike's reply. "Now we must go quickly before the disease spreads too far." Mike reflected on this conversation as they floated through the heart of enemy territory. Not that this tribe was his enemy. He had prayed for them often and trusted that the Lord would open a door of opportunity to give the gospel. He knew the timing would have to be right, though. For the time being, he had been forced to wait. Tensions were running high as the group landed their canoes and set off down the jungle trail. The first portion of the trail ran through the outer edge of the vicious tribe's territory, and everyone in the group kept their eyes on the jungle. Mike whispered a verse to himself as he followed his guide down the narrow path. "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. Trust ye in the Lord forever." Mike's calm demeanor settled the group as they trudged warily along. Mike's guides grew agitated as they plunged deeper into the jungle. They were nearing the edge of the enemy territory, and soon they would be safe within the friendly village's protection. But they were not there yet. Then it happened. In the blink of an eye, the group was surrounded by the razor-sharp lances of the enemy tribe. Mike's guides chattered loudly, shouting at the enemy and pleading for mercy. One of the guides shouted at Mike, reminding him that they should have brought their guns. "No," Mike called out. "Be calm. Be calm. If they had wanted to kill us, we would already be dead. They see we don't have weapons. Please be quiet and let's see what they want." Mike held his hands out to show the enemies that his hands were empty and told his group to do likewise. They laid down their backpacks to show that they were submitting to the enemy's control. They didn't want anyone to get the wrong idea. Just then, the leader of the enemy force stepped forward. He spoke quickly in a dialect that Mike could not understand. "It's the disease," one of the scouts explained. "He wants your medicine for the disease. He had heard that we were coming, and he wants you to visit his village first." "Tell him we will come," Mike said. The native guide spoke quickly to the enemy chief, and they were soon headed down a side trail to a village they had never even seen before. The situation was worse than Mike had expected. Nearly all of the women and children were infected, and some of the men were stricken too. Mike carefully injected the antidote into each of those who had been affected. The natives feared Mike's needle, but the calm in his face and voice seemed to soothe the wary natives more than the medicine. Before leaving, Mike asked the chief to gather all who were well enough to listen. He calmly explained, using his guide as a translator, why he was living in the jungle. He told them that there was a God who had sent him to do something more important than needles and medicine. He had sent his only son to heal their sinful hearts. He knew that it would take time before the natives truly understood what he meant, but it was just the beginning of what he had been praying for. On the return trip the next day, the natives were still amazed at the events of the previous day. No one had ever visited this village before and lived to tell about it. Mike was quick to remind his friends of the decision to leave the weapons behind. What would have happened if they had been armed? Their enemies might have attacked, or his own group might have fired a shot in defense when surprised on the jungle trail. The events were the perfect illustration of God's strength and wisdom to those who new believers. You can trust in chariots and horses and spears and guns, but no power is as great as the name of the Lord. So the above story is fictional, like I said before. It is a made-up story that somebody told. It does, however, represent the decisions that many missionaries now face and have faced throughout their years. They have to carry the gospel to unknown areas and to witness to people that they've never seen before. These faithful servants find peace daily in knowing that their lives are in the hands of the Almighty God, who is more wise and powerful than any device of man. Okay, that's a pretty cool story, right? I like that one a lot. Now we have something really special for you. Again, it's time to get rowdy and loud, but we can't play game. So instead of game time, I'm going to call it game time, but it's actually kind of an experiment today, okay? So we have some Mentos. Do you guys know what Mentos are? It's kind of a chewy mint that you can eat, kind of a candy. We're going to put those in some different soda and see which one shoots as high, or which one shoots the highest, okay? So we're going to go watch that really quick, and we'll come back in just a minute.
All right, everybody, welcome to Game Time. Today we have a special treat for you. We have, as you can see here, we have 2 liters of different types of pop on the ground here, all lined up. We have Sprite, we have Diet Pepsi, Diet Mountain Dew, Zero Sugar Pepsi, and Diet Coke. First, we're going to see Sprite with Mentos. We're going to put Mentos into the sodas and see how it works.
Here we go. We're having a little bit of trouble getting them all in there. But here we go. And, oh!
Wow, look at that.
That's a pretty good start off.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's happening. I'm excited to see what's coming in the next sodas here.
Indeed. Diet Pepsi. I'm gonna have some high hopes for this one. This one should perform pretty well.
I don't know. I'm leaning towards the Diet Coke. We'll see how this works.
We'll see.
Oh, have a little trouble getting in the bottom. Oh, here it goes.
Whoa,
oh,
whoa,
wow. Whoa, that went way up there.
That one
Let's get a couple different
Wow.
angles here. Wow. Can we get another angle on this one?
Let's get some slow motion up in there.
Oh my goodness.
Look at that.
Wow. That went way up there.
Wow.
That is beautiful. I'm excited. We got Diet Mountain Dew next. Let's see how
this one's going to be a bit of a wild card here. I don't know
how it'll work with the Mountain Dew. Here it goes. Oh, that went in really easily. And okay. That one's disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm really disappointed about that one. I love Mountain Dew, but that it usually doesn't disappoint me, but that disappointed me.
Yeah. I had higher hopes for that. Didn't have the highest of hopes, but that one kind of was under what I was expecting. So that was slightly disappointing.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. All right. Pepsi, Zero Sugar. Now, the Diet Pepsi it had really good height. We'll see how this one goes.
High hopes for this one as well. Here we go.
A little bit of trouble getting it in. And it's in.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Man.
That got up there.
Yeah.
It seems like the Pepsi does really well.
It does.
I'm excited to see how the Diet Coke works. It's notorious for I guess, exploding when you put Mentos in it.
Yep.
So
it's the one that started this whole thing, so I have
absolutely
high hopes for that.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Diet Coke with Mentos. Let's see how this goes. All right. He's going to put it in there. Here it goes. Here it goes.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh.
That's
not as high. Absolutely. That's not quite as high as the Pepsis. Now it's between, in my opinion, the Pepsi Zero Sugar and the Diet Pepsi.
Indeed. You can see that the Diet Coke here, it started to get up there, but you can see that the wind took hold of it a little bit at the end there and started pushing it over.
Yes.
But I still don't think it would have outperformed either of the Pepsis. I think those are going to be the strongest contenders here.
Let us know which one you think won.
Okay, did you like that experiment? That was pretty cool, right? I didn't know which one would go that high, but those were all pretty neat. Okay, so now it's time for our verse work. You don't get off the hook just because we can't meet together. So this is important work we're doing. Okay, so first we're going to have our group of tiny trackers. Ready? Okay, so I need Jacob and Lexi and Nolan and Elena and Lewis and Misha and Anna and Chloe. I think that's all of you. That's a lot. You guys are a big group. Okay, tiny trackers, everybody stand up. We're gonna do something a little tiny bit different this week. I think I've told you this before in class, but at my house, sometimes when we're memorizing verses, we say them in funny voices to try to learn them better, okay? So we're gonna try that today. We're gonna do both week 23, which is what we're going on now, and our review verse for week 22, okay? So first verse that we have to do is week 23, and for tiny trackers, we're doing just Psalm 20, verse 7, part of it, okay? So Psalm 20, verse 7, and I'm gonna have you guys say it low and slow, okay? So you're gonna say it kind of like your slow motion and like your Andy Schrock singing, okay? So as low as you can and as slow as you can, okay? Ready? Psalm 20, verse 7. Remember the name of the Lord our God. Psalm 20, verse 7. That's very silly, isn't it? Okay, in our review verse, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to say it super high and super fast, okay? Kind of like a chipmunk. Got it? Can you do that? Okay, talk really high and really fast. Ready? Philippians 2:14. Do all things without murmurings. Philippians 2:14. Good job. My camera people are laughing at me, guys. All right. That was a good job. Tiny trackers, you guys can be seated. We'll work on other ways in the future, okay? Those are my favorites. All right. Scripture spies. Ready? Kendall, can you stand up? Okay. Caden, Caleb, Leah, Marissa, and Ian, okay? All of you guys stand up. We're going to do week 23 for Scripture Spies, and you guys are going to whisper, okay? Can you hear me if we whisper? All right. I'm going to whisper kind of loudly so I can make sure you can hear me, but you guys can whisper at home. Okay, ready? Psalm 20, verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Psalm 20, verse 7. Good job. Okay, and then we're going to do our week 22 review. And we're going to do this one like the other guys did. We're going to do low and slow. Ready? Okay. Psalm 20, verse 7. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Do all things without murmurings and disputings. Psalm 20, verse 7. Good job. All right, you guys can sit down. You guys are doing really good. All right. Faith Force. Here we go. Mary and Isabella. You guys ready? Okay. Caleb, Grayson, and Anna. All right, we are going to start with week 23. We're going to whisper. This is your new verse. Ready? Isaiah 26, 3 and 4. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. Trust ye in the Lord forever. Isaiah 26, 3 and 4. Okay, and then one more, week 22 for you guys. See if you can get really high, like super high. Can you guys do chipmunk voices? Okay, here we go. James 1, 2, and 3. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. James 1, 2, and 3. Good job. You guys are all right. Okay, we'll work on those in the future. We can do it better when we're in person. It's more fun. I'm sure you guys think I'm crazy now, and that's okay. Okay, now it's time to calm back down a little bit and we will listen to the lesson. This is the best part of the whole night, right, guys? Okay. We've been talking about ways that we need to remember to turn to God, not the world, during our trials, right? It's easy to run to a friend or to a teacher or somebody to complain about what you've been going through in your life and to whine and fuss. We've been talking about how God doesn't want us to murmur or dispute, right? That's our natural reaction to situations like that. But the Lord tells us that we need to seek him first, okay? So let's see what he wants us to do when we're in times of trial. The children of Israel traveled through the wilderness, remember that? And they had been very hungry. They got super hungry, kind of like you guys are at about 11:59 on a Sunday morning when Pastor Stallings is still preaching, right? But it's important that we remember to be patient. But the children of Israel were getting very hungry as they were traveling through the wilderness. Israel had already seen God's great power repeatedly during the plagues on Egypt and their delivery from Pharaoh's army at the Red Sea. Instead of asking God to supply their need, however, they turned their hearts back to their days in Egypt and murmured about how things had been better then. Didn't they remember that they had been slaves? Israel was going to have to learn to trust their God in times of trials instead of turning their hearts back toward Egypt. God demonstrated his ability to provide by sending quails and manna over and over again, right? Israel had a long wilderness road ahead of them. They had to learn to trust God, not the world, during their trials. Let's see what the Bible actually said. In Exodus chapter 16, verse 3, it says, "And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God that we died at the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." They're whining that they're hungry, aren't they? But God was going to provide, and he needed them to trust him instead of worrying about their own situation. God always provides for his children. Okay, and in Psalms 20, verse 7, that's familiar for a lot of you. You guys had to memorize that for today, right? That verse was written by David, who was a faithful warrior king of Israel. One might think that after all of his military successes that he would have a great deal of faith in the horses and chariots. But David had learned that the true key to success was God, and he learned that early in his life. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, it gives the account of David's battle with Goliath. You guys know that story? It's an incredible story of a little boy who went to battle against a huge giant and won with a slingshot. It's incredible. When he went before King Saul to plead his case, David did not ask for horses and chariots, but rather told Saul of the times that God had empowered him to become a mighty foe. He knew that victory was his in the Lord's name. In fact, though armed with a sling and a stone, it was the Lord's name that he claimed as his strength when confronting Goliath. God desires for his name to be glorified when we turn to him in times of trial. He will never fail us for his name's sake. When facing a large, well-armed, battle-tested foe, a general would naturally want as many men and weapons on his side as he could get. But God did not allow Gideon to operate his normal military fashion. Instead, God told Gideon that his army, which was already outnumbered, was too large. Why? Because when the victory was won, the people of Israel would learn to trust in their army and not in their God. So, through a few unusual tests, God whittled down Gideon's army down to just 300 men. That's a really cool story. If you're not familiar with it, ask your parents to read it to you. It is a really interesting way that God kept making the group smaller and smaller. Not only was Gideon's army small by any standard, they went to battle armed with, what do you think? They were armed with trumpets and jars and torches. That's a very unusual way to be an armed army, right? So Gideon's army was going to learn that victory comes through the Lord and his might and not the power of men. Gideon's force won an amazing, if not unusual, victory, and God received all the glory. One more illustration, ready? Daniel chapter 3 gives the account of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. If you guys don't know this story, another very cool one. These are awesome stories they're bringing up. These three and they had a faithful stand for the Lord. Instead of bowing to the image set up by King Nebuchadnezzar, they were supposed to bow to an image that he had set up, and they were supposed to worship this, okay? But they refused because they wanted to worship and honor their one true God. To be called before the world's mightiest king might have been a fearful thing. And knowing that they were breaking the king's commandment had to be scary. And also, if they were found guilty, they were going to be thrown into a fiery furnace. That had to be scary too, right? Did these men show fear though? No, they sure didn't. Instead, they had peace in their hearts because their minds were fixed on God and his promises. They stated that their God could and would deliver them, and they went into the fiery furnace. God did indeed deliver them, as he does for all of us in our trials. We can have peace in our hearts when our mind is fixed on God. So that's what we need to remember this week as we face trials, even if they're small, okay? Even if your trial is doing something when you're told to the first time and obeying right away without grumbling and complaining against your parents. That's a challenge that you all face, isn't it? Or it can be something bigger too. Maybe there's a bully in your neighborhood who's trying to steal your bike. Whatever your trial is, it might seem small or it might seem big, but God can still be in it and he can still get the glory. So remember, don't run and complain to your friends and fuss at your parents. You can pray and ask God to help you work out the situation so that he can get the glory. And make sure you look for the lesson God is trying to teach you. Maybe he wants you to be more patient or more kind or forgiving. But always look to see what God wants you to learn. Okay, so remember, next week will be week 24. We're getting really far into this, guys. We don't have that many more weeks before we're all done. So week 24. So for next week, I got a little bit differently things for you, okay? So first, instead of just me telling you what I want you to do, I also have a little thing. I want you to pray, okay? So you guys all can pray when you go to bed, or you can pray with your parents, or you can pray at dinner time, whatever. Whenever you set aside a special time to pray, make sure you're praying for the leaders around you, okay? Right now is a very uncertain time in the United States, and they keep telling us to stay home, stay home, stay home. So pray for the leaders of our country. Pray for President Trump as he's facing uncertain times and situations that are difficult. You can pray for him. You can pray for the leaders of our church. Okay, pray for Pastor Stallings. He has to make decisions every day regarding about whether or not we can have services. So make sure you pray for the leaders of our church. And then just make sure you pray for your families too, okay? Make sure you're praying for your mom and dad. Everybody can use prayer. So make sure you pray this week. And then also make sure you do your devotions. You can do those every day. I'm going to be checking those when you get back together with me, okay? And memorize your verses. So you're going to work on week 24 for next week, and then also a review of week 23 that we just did. So I know you all can do them. You guys are all awesome at memorizing verses. Make sure you have your parents videotape those and send them to me, or you can FaceTime me, or you can send me an audio file. You can upload it to Messenger. However you want to get it to me is fine by me. But just make sure you get those in by next week, okay? Only a couple people sent them to me last week. So make sure you work on getting those in to me so you can get points. And then we'll work on getting our store night back together when we can be together, okay? So I'm praying for all of you. I'm praying that we get to come back to church soon and that we can all meet together and have silly fun and game time and watch Andy make a fool of himself and all of that and be together, okay? So that'll be really fun and I can't wait. Okay, so that's all I have for you. I miss you guys. Have a great week and remember I'm praying for you. Bye-bye.